this is my Drypoint plate, and then from that I've created a print just using the block ink. You'll need your Drypoint card, which is the one which has got the nice shiny surface to it. You'll need your scribe, which is this metal implement here. You'll also need your ink tray. Inside the ink tray we're going to squeeze some of the block art print ink. You're going to cut a piece of your Drypoint card. For me to experiment with you today, I thought I'd keep it quite small, and then we have the chance to do some lovely marks on it. So I wanted to draw from a photograph, so I'm just going to have a little look on my phone. So I'm just going to try and draw from that on here using my scribe. Maybe I'll get I'm going to use my roller to prop my scribe, to prop up my phone so that I have a better picture. And I'm just going to use the scribe to make some lines, but I'm basically drawing into the shiny side of the paper. So where I've drawn this line, it's broken the laminate on the top of the card, and it means that the ink will go inside there and it will print the line for me. You should be able to lift it away and just lift off the laminate. A bit careful on the edges. You want to make sure that your line is really clean so that it just pulls away what you want it to and doesn't rip away any other surface. And what the idea is that where I'm taking off this layer of the shiny surface, the ink will stick. The ink will stick to this bit underneath, and that will print out black, whereas we can wipe everything that's still shiny and white, we can wipe it clean when we remove the ink a bit later down the line. But for now, we're just going to concentrate on drawing, and wherever you draw a line, it should print black. And if you leave the surface untouched, then that will print, or it should print clear or a light grey, depending on how much ink you take off. Adding a bit of texture on other buildings in other ways, so the dots on the roof, and I'm now doing sort of some dashes and dots here to be a window. And you can do anything you'd like on this, really. So if you wanted to do any sort of flowers, so you could go out for a walk, and you could just take your Drypoint card out. You could draw on that straight away wherever you are walking. I've removed patches here and down here, so that should ink up nice and dark, and then you can see there's the tiny dots. I've done dots for windows here, dashes on the roof there, and then just some dots over here as well, and then there's some lines up in the sky. So the next thing is you squeeze a little blob of ink there, and then something that will be in your pack. You can either use a credit card, or if you've got some old cardboard, and then you just put a bit of ink on the card and then just scrape it across. So make sure you're on a surface that you can keep clean, or maybe put it down on a sheet of paper right now. And you're going to take the ink all over your Drypoint plate. Now I've just remembered the next step, which I haven't quite sorted out yet, which is putting some paper in to soak. So I've got my paper ready, just sat here in front of me, but I haven't put it in some water yet. So the idea is that if it's soaking in water, that it will pick up a little bit more ink out of the lines, because it will be more flexible. So there we go. And then now I've inked up the plate, so you can see that the ink is inside all the lines and the grooves. And then now we need to buff this back again and remove some of the ink, so it leaves just ink in the lines that you've drawn and not over the shiny surface. So what I'm using here is something that's called Hessian or scrim, but you can also use like some net. If you've got any net from vegetables, so stuff that limes, lemons, onions comes in, if you've got any of that netting from your veg, then you can just use that, and all you want to do is scrub, try and remove this ink off the surface. So where I'm rubbing away the ink, it's exposing the lines, and the lines on the print on the Drypoint plate is still quite dark. You can start to see now where the ink's soaked into the surface and it's gone onto the cardboard layer, and you can see how the shiny layer, you can wipe off all the residual ink. And you've got to be a bit careful because I'm leaving mucky fingerprints now on the edges, which we don't want to print with. And then with the tissue, just use it flat under your fingers, and that should help to burnish away any extra ink that you don't want that might be in between the lines. But you don't want to push down with this because you really want to leave the ink inside the grooves that you've cut there, and just remove the excess off the shiny part of the Drypoint plate. Okay then, so here we are. So I've got my water in here, which is just a takeaway container, and then this paper, actually this is just cartridge paper, so I think it would be quite nice to have a bit more space than I need. So I'm not going to leave the cartridge paper to soak for very long because it's not. So this is a nice clean tea towel. I know it looks dirty, but it isn't. And what I'm going to do is, whilst it's clean, I'm going to use it to blot my paper, so to take off the excess water. So if you were using the nice thick bread and butter paper, you'd probably leave it to soak for about 5 minutes. And then what you need to do is take off the excess water, like this. So just put it between your clean tea towel and just dab it away. Dabble the water. So the idea is that it will still have a bit of water in it, but it won't be shiny and wet. Put your plate on it, and then position your paper. And then we're going to use the back of a really big spoon to apply pressure to print with. So here's the spoon. So what I'm going to do is get something to lean on. So again, you can use baking powder, baking paper, or I'm going to use a bit of old newsprint. I'm just going to put that down on here. I'm going to try and hold everything really still with one hand, and then apply pressure with the spoon. And hopefully you can keep everything still. So it's really, really important that you apply nice even pressure across your plate, but that you also don't let it move. So you can just give it one last pass over once you've removed the newsprint, just to make sure that you're happy that you've put enough pressure over everything. And then, now, what do we think? It's not picked up lots and lots of ink in some places, so you can see just here it's a little bit lighter than I might have wanted. And then here we knew, didn't we, that there wasn't all the ink on the surface, so that was always going to be a bit lighter. And the chimney's a bit lighter. That's probably because I didn't push as much as I should have done. I should have applied more pressure over here. But what's quite nice is the quality of the lines. You can see where the scribe, so this metal tool that we were using, has created this really interesting broken line. So that is my first print from this plate. And so what I can do now is I can have a look and I can see if there's anything that I want to change. So one of the things that immediately springs to mind with me, with this particular design, is that everything's reversed, look. So where this plate here is an accurate depiction of where I was sat. So I've got the under full yard chimney on the left hand side of the scene, and then the create centre on the right. It's all been mirrored on the print. So this is something really important when you're doing printmaking to remember, especially if you're using writing, is that everything has to be reversed. So one thing worth mentioning, so once you've done your printing, if you want them to dry flat, is to maybe put your print in between some tissue and get some books and like put a couple of books on top of the prints and just wait for them to dry. And then once they're dry, they'll be nice and flat.